What's up, guys? Happy Sunday. Welcome back to Fit Body Secrets, where my mission is to bring you guys inspiration, motivation, and some tips to help you guys on your fitness and your fat loss journey. And I just want to make sure that I am actually live on all platforms because this usually takes me a second. Yeah, guys, I don't normally record on Sundays, but I'm going to be honest right now. I'm kind of living by the seat of my pants, I guess is the lack of better terms. I just feel like last week was just a long week, and I took the weekend to kind of recharge. And I kind of told myself going into this week that I was going to do whatever felt good and working on things when I felt like working on them. And today I had something to talk about. So here I am. And I missed my podcast last Tuesday, and I've been consistent with my podcast every single week for I think probably since I started, I've always recorded at least one episode, but since doing it on Tuesdays, well over a year. So it was definitely odd, but there was no way I was going to be recording it last week in the shape that I was in. And I probably will dive more into the things that I was experiencing, because I do think it's going to be helpful for a lot of other females out there. But I want to wait until I have like definitives on things. They did a lot of testing. So for those of you guys that are listening to me on Instagram, or if you're listening to me on YouTube or my podcast, thank you all for, obviously thinking about me last week. It was a very rough week, and I'm happy to be home. And my God, was I so happy to be sleeping in my own bed and having my own food and all of that stuff. So today's episode is going to be a little bit shorter. And I'm going to be honest, I work with a lot of people, and a very common theme that I see in unsuccessful journeys is a lot of people get really excited about transformations. You picture what could happen. You have this vision and you see yourself now and you're like, I really want to change. You're so ready to change. And I can lay out the blueprint for you. I can give you all of the tips and tricks. I can help simplify it for your life. But that honeymoon phase of motivation to do the work is going to dwindle, because the work is going to get boring. And I see this happen very often. Just to give you guys a little bit of a backstory about my program in particular. So with my coaching program, my clients obviously do follow a high quality diet. So I do provide them with guidance on what they should be eating to get their sources of calories, making sure that they're getting in enough nutrients and making sure they're getting enough fiber. But it's flexible, and we use food tracking. So we do keep a food diary. I do prescribe macro prescriptions, but they're not like spot on numbers. They're more about ranges. So it's very, very flexible. I never am going to tell a client, oh, you weren't within 10 grams of your carbs, that's why you're not getting results. That's not who I am, because we don't need to be that disciplined in order to see results. But it does require work, okay? And this is what I want to start with today. Is the topic of today is about getting back on track when you're just not motivated. That honeymoon phase is going to end, right? You're going to be really motivated because you see a photo of yourself, or you feel like crap after eating all of the holiday food, or a pair of jeans don't fit you. That place of pain is going to go away in a very short period of time. And it's going to be your job to stay consistent with the changes that you're making in order to keep seeing progress. And this is where people go wrong, is they look at motivation wrong. So as I was saying, before going into what I'm going to take a step back, because I was going to start to talk about topic number one. The first thing that I want you guys to understand about motivation here is, if you're trying to stay on track and you're trying to get back on track when you're not motivated, okay? I wrote this down. I just want to make sure I say it the right way, okay? You need to be consistent with the work when you aren't motivated, because you are motivated by the results of the work. Basically, what I'm saying is there's going to be days where you don't feel like doing it. There's going to be times when you would much rather not be focused on your goals. You'd rather be doing something else. But you have to be so driven to change that you're willing to stay consistent with those things. And that's why I'm going to go back to that place of pain is going to go away. And that's what happens. In those moments, it don't matter. You're willing to do the work because right now where you're at outweighs the effort of doing the work. But when that goes away and you get complacent again, that's when it becomes hard to get motivation. That's when it becomes hard to keep yourself consistent, because you no longer feel that sense of urgency or that sense of I've got to get out of here. And so that was why I wanted to start by breaking that down before I go into some things. Now we're going to go into some things. Okay. I saw this quote. I'm just full of quotes today. It came across my Instagram feed, something along the lines of, a lot of people say that they want change. Very few people actually want to change. And this comes down to a lot of people are looking for the results. You want to see yourself at the other end of the journey. But when motivation dwindles and you have to keep going, are you willing to keep making the changes? So number one, and that's why I kind of talked about my strategy, is it is going to require some effort. Any level of success in anything in life is going to require you to go work through tough times. You're going to have to be a problem solver. You're going to have to do things that you don't want to do. You show up to your job every day for, work that you don't want to do sometimes because you know that it's part of what makes you able to keep a roof over your head or keep food on the table or whatever it is, or afford your gym membership. You do things a lot of times that you're not motivated to do because you have to do them. In nutrition, it doesn't become a priority. It becomes something that it's okay if I do or don't get it. You don't take your goals, what I would like to say, seriously enough. And I'm not saying it's not how bad that you want it, because we can go down to why sometimes people are just doing things that are entirely unnecessary, and it does make it too difficult. But you have to recognize that sometimes the work is not going to be fun and exciting. There's going to be struggles. So number one is understanding that any level of success is going to require struggle. Perfect example. We are in the middle of the most festive month of the entire year. This is the month where you just want to be cozy on your couch, watch some movies, play with your kids, decorate the house. You don't even really feel motivated to do work. You don't feel motivated to do anything. And then nutrition, you kind of feel like having some different foods. You're around different things. Seasonally things have changed. And it's knowing how to also have all of those experiences and still stay focused on the goals that you have for yourself. We're going to talk about pivoting, because sometimes maybe you need to pivot a little bit on your expectations. But when you're not motivated to get back on track with your nutrition, the first thing you have to understand is that you're going to have to work through problems. You're going to have to work through struggles. And right now, why I mentioned this is one of your struggles might be in the holiday season, you don't know how to stay consistent with nutrition while also still allowing yourself to enjoy social meals, to have a couple of drinks. I have a client that says eggnog is her thing and she wants to be able to enjoy eggnog all season. Like, whatever it is, you have not figured out a system that allows you to have a level of pressure and stress on your nutrition while still allowing some flexibility and fun. And that's the first thing that we have to figure out. How can we get you to experience a level of stress that is sustainable? Because stress is where adaptation happens in anything. If you're an athlete, you know that. If you're training CrossFit, you know that. When you go to the gym and you push yourself, you get fitter because you do things you didn't think you could. It's the same thing with your nutrition, but also allows for some flexibility. And I'm going to start with this is probably, if there is one roadblock I see with clients in my program that are not successful, it's food tracking. Okay. I'm going to be honest. If you want to work with me, I want you to get results. If you want to get results, I got to be able to see a food diary. If you are not willing to keep a food diary, I'm not going to be able to help you because I have no idea what you're consuming. So how can I help you if you're not willing to help yourself? This is a team effort. You have to be willing to do the work so that I can work with you. And I get this a lot where I'll get half-assed food diaries, or a client says they're reporting everything and I know that they're not reporting everything, because I'm going to be honest. I know if a client's weight is not going down and they're reporting 1,100 calories a day, something's missing. Okay. So you got to be willing to do the work. You got to be willing to say, no, I want to do the work to get the result. And there's going to be times where it's not always easy. I'm here to help troubleshoot that, if you're willing to understand how to do that. I didn't prep my food this week, Cheryl. What should I do? Here are some things you can buy at the grocery store that are already pre-made. It's up to you to decide to do that rather than going through the drive-through, or rather than, grabbing takeout, or rather than just eating a bowl of cereal, or rather than not eating, right? So I can give you all of the suggestions and the solutions that aren't always going to feel easy, but it's going to get the job done. Okay. And so that's why I wanted to start with that. So any level of success is going to require struggle. I also don't want you to think that my way is the only way, because there are a lot of people that are successful with their nutrition without tracking. This is just the way that I know works for me. It's science-based. It allows me to adjust my clients' needs based on their energy levels, allowing me to give them more flexibility in their diet when they need it, telling them to tighten it up when they need to. It's the best way to have the best of both worlds, fast results and flexibility. So that was number one, is understanding that it's going to require some stress. You're going to have to be willing to do some change. If you are also, number two, is if you're finding yourself in a place where like you're not quite motivated, ask yourself why you're not quite motivated. And there's a couple of things I want you to think about. One, how has your progress been so far? I shouldn't say there's a couple of things. There's one thing, but looking at it from two sides of the story, or two sides of the coin, is on one side of the coin, if you look back at your journey, you're like, man, look how far I've come. Maybe it's okay right now to like pivot and relax a little bit and know what that looks like. And know that sometimes what you need to understand is how to pivot from focusing on fat loss into focusing on like just maintaining right now, and being okay with like living a season where like you're not so hyper focused on food. Like, what would that be like to you, right? And I'm not talking about eating whatever you want, because if eating whatever you want ends up making you feel like shit about yourself, that's also not the right thing. We want to find that blend, right? So looking back at your progress, where are you at? How long have you been in a fat loss phase for? Have you been literally dieting all year round? Like, maybe it's time for you to pivot and learn how to maintain for a little bit and then drop back into fat loss. You might find that your motivation goes up. On the other end of the coin, or the other side of the coin, if you look back at your progress and you're like, you're doing the same thing and you're not getting anywhere, maybe the reality is it's time for you to figure something else out. And this can come down to two things. One, have you been truly committed to the work you're supposed to be doing? Are you actually doing the work? Or two, is the plan you're doing really effective? So a lot of people I will get that maybe have been tracking macros for years and they're not seeing any changes. I'm like, if you've been eating the same macros for years and you're not seeing any changes, like, and you're trying to, like, there's an issue. Now, if you're trying to maintain, that's a different story. So we want to look at, are you actually making progress? And not looking at progress just from the physical aspect or the weight aspect as well. I've got clients that have been working with me who maybe they haven't made a lot of progress on the scale, but maybe they're eating more, their gut's better, maybe their relationship with food is better, maybe they're happier, maybe they are just overall generally just enjoying life better because they're feeding themselves enough, they have more calories, they have more flexibility in their diet. So you want to look at all of the progress as well. And that really does help you to sometimes look at motivation. And maybe that will drive you also to be like, this is why this matters. Next thing to consider if you're having a hard time with motivation is, as I already kind of mentioned, is like, what are you actually doing right now? Like what exactly, when you're dialing in on your nutrition and you're lacking motivation, what is it that you're doing? Because a lot of times what I find is that clients that are lacking motivation to get back on track with their nutrition, it's because their mindset is diet mindset. Very, very, very like strict, rigid diet. They have rules for themselves. They don't allow themselves to eat things. They just don't allow themselves any moderation. And that is very hard to stay motivated on long-term unless that's how you want to eat forever. So one of the key concepts of my program that I want you to understand is that whenever you are working with me, my goal is that your diet doesn't change from when you're working with me to when you're not working with me, when you're in fat loss or you're in maintenance. The only thing that changes is the amount of calories you're consuming and probably how accurately you're tracking your food. Most of my clients, well, they have the option. It's up to you. Do you want to keep tracking? Do you not want to keep tracking? But the goal really is you shouldn't have to, because we don't eat by numbers. We eat foods, and the foods ensure, or we make sure that we're not getting too much of those foods, or we're getting enough of the right things. So asking yourself, is what you're doing really enjoyable? Like, it's not fun to be on a strict diet. Like, you need to understand how to be flexible. Maybe you need to understand how to fit in that glass of eggnog and not feel like you just got off track. You know, I think that there really isn't a track in nutrition. Like, think about it this way. If you were living your life with the goal of like getting somewhere, like nutritionally, like it's like not possible. Like your goal in life is to like be a mom, be a dad, be a CEO of a company and leave a legacy, right? Like what you ate at dinner time is not is not like your life track. It's what fuels it. So I think you guys should shift your focus to realize that like you just have to stay consistent with your nutrition. And this is the stuff that I want you guys to understand. I think that the last thing that I want to kind of touch on is, and I already kind of mentioned this, is looking at the expectations. I already talked about progress, and maybe you have made some progress, maybe you haven't. Maybe what you need to do is pivot a little bit. And this is a great month for pivoting. The Christmas season comes every single year. I shouldn't say Christmas, and not everybody celebrates Christmas, but the holiday season comes every single year, festive time of year. From Thanksgiving through New Year's, like people are just a little bit more relaxed, chilled out. Maybe that's why I feel the way that I do today. I just have a freaking, I don't give a shit kind of an attitude today. But when you learn to pivot, you actually are making progress. If you normally are somebody that's like, oh, I am not motivated to get on track right now. I'm going to get back on track when the new year starts, or it's just not the right time to focus, whatever, for whatever reason, you're waiting for the perfect time. Pivoting for you and making progress might be like, you know what? Let me actually like try and do this from a way that isn't goal driven by the scale. It's goal driven by like me getting consistent so that I can actually make progress in the new year. Like that might be the best thing you never did. And that does look like maybe allowing yourself more food flexibility, understanding how all foods can fit the plan, giving yourself some grace, and maybe learning how to track when you aren't only focused on fat loss. Because let me be honest, it's way more fun when you track your food when you don't have parameters. I mean, let's be honest. If you go shopping and I tell you that you have $100 budget, you're going to be like, well, that's no fun. Like, where am I going to go? Like the dollar store, which really isn't even the dollar store anymore. I think it's got to have to be, I don't even think Five Below is $5 or less now. I don't even know why they call it that. I mean, everything there is like $15. Tangent. But if I told you, hey, take my credit card, spend as much as you want, you're like, fuck yeah, let's go to town. Where are we going? So like if you give yourself a chance to just like see what your body naturally likes and see where you maybe could add more in. Wow, I'm a little bit low on protein, a little bit low on fiber. You're not taking away, you're adding in. You might find that you're more successful. So what I'm going to leave you with is this, and this is probably the main thing that I want you to get out of this episode, is if you truly want to change, I'm going to go back to that. If you truly want to see a transformation change, you are going to have to work when you're not motivated. You cannot rely on motivation. But if you're motivated by the end result, you will do the work regardless if you're motivated or not. So maybe it's looking at motivation differently. Maybe it's looking at you're so motivated to get where you want to be that even in the times when you're not motivated, you are willing to do the work. And the work does not have to be that hard. It does not. It's just like we're not always motivated to get out of bed. It's not really that hard, but like the bed just feels really good, right? So we do it though. It's the same thing here. Rip the Band-Aid off and get to work. Sometimes that's what you need. So hopefully this episode was helpful for you. And if you are struggling to get back on track, remind yourself that there is no track in nutrition. Your next meal can be better than your one before it. You got this. And that's it. I will see you all again on Tuesday.